So horror as a genre has always fascinated me. I wouldn't say that I have a very strong gut to take all the horror movies or the horror stories, but I know a very few people who write horror and who have done or stuck to the genre and have done really well in the past few years. Welcome, Neil De Silva. Welcome to Writer's Melon. I'm so happy to finally have you here. So tell us about your latest book, Playthings, and it had a very Halloweeny feel. And yeah, please tell us more about that book and your journey as a one of the prominent horror writers, I would say, in India today.
Thank you for all the high praise. Thanks, Priyanka, for having me over because I've been tracking Writers Melon since many years now, and you have been consistently doing a fabulous job for writers, for literature. And yes, I'm very thankful for all that kind of stuff because, we writers need to connect with as many readers as possible. So,
Yes.
yes, now I'm on the cusp of Playthings. It's just released. It was a Halloween release. Puffin brought it out. And it's my first horror novel for middle grade. So it's my
Like a
14th
young
overall.
adult.
And yes, a very young adult. The age specified on the book cover is 10 plus.
Okay.
So it was an exciting experience for me to write as well because writing for a younger audience requires a completely different
Absolutely.
set of skills. The book is doing well as far as I can see, and the response is good. It's also ranking on the crossword lists and Amazon lists and all that. But more than that, I love these tiny little messages that are coming my way on Instagram and all DMs from the kids who have read the book, and also some who are not kids. So people are loving the vibe of it. So to tell you about the book, this was a project that Puffin brought my way via my agency, the Bookbakers. They had a concept of doing something like how Goosebumps is in the US. So
Okay.
Goosebumps is this phenomenon, right? Every child has grown up. I mean, horror-loving kid has grown up on Goosebumps. Stein is a definite genius. So we wanted to do something like that in India, start a series, probably kick off something for the young adult audience. Even I have seen that children love horror, but the horror that we put out in India, at least so far, isn't quite safe for them to be. It is either
Yes.
too violent, too gory, the themes are too adult, or it is mixed with certain elements that children
Comedy
cannot.
or yeah.
Yeah, certain things. So what we wanted to do is to write some kind of a safe horror for children,
Hmm.
kind of a thrill that a roller coaster might give them. So that kind of thrill we wanted to give, mix it with a little bit adventure, mix it with a little bit of detective stuff and all that. So that is how I came up with a few concepts for horror novels for a series, and then this one was picked up. This one was the one we decided to go with. So Playthings is the first in a series of books that will be around the Fearless Four. They are
Wow.
investigators. They are modeled on the famous five and all that. All kids grew up reading those. We love that. So we have four very intrepid, savvy kids, all teens and tweens, and they are cracking cases. But the cases that they are cracking are different. I mean, they are the
Okay.
cases that are shunned by everybody else. So these are the paranormal cases.
Okay.
Cases where there are ghosts
So
and spirits.
detective mystery with paranormal element to it.
So we had for Playthings, what we did was we went all out. Like
Mm.
we will give children all the chills and spills and thrills that they want. We made toys scary. I mean, I have a lot of
Yeah.
haunted and possessed toys who are
Okay.
turning on their owners. And these four
Okay.
kids, my heroes, they are trying to investigate why this is happening. That's it. That's what the book is about.
Amazing. Amazing. This reminds me of one German comic series that my son really enjoys. It's called The Three Exclamation. In German, it's called the Drei Fragezeichen. It is very popular. I mean, the shelves are filled with the series of these books, and the kids are just in awe of these characters. I mean, so good luck. Maybe your series is one of those that we see. And this space, like you said, is so underdiscovered in India because normally, I mean, I can give you my example. I did not start reading fiction till I was, let's say, in 10th or 11th grade because or even later when I was a bit of a rebel from my academics, because I was like, okay, I have studied too much, now I need a break. But that is how I guess 90% of the kids in India grow up with. They always prioritize math and science over literature. And how much ever we study math and science, we need at the end of the day the skills and the art of the literature. So amazing. I was not very sure that it is a young adult book, but now that you're saying, I think I will take the courage of picking this up, because I'm not a very horror kind of a reader. I'm very scared of horror movies.
This is very
But
mild humor, the kind of thing that children would enjoy. And
yes,
just to say something here, because this is the right place to say it, is that we think that the habit of reading is on the decline, especially among children and all, because you
at
just
least in
spoke
my
about.
generation, I don't know how it is now in India.
But
I mean,
yeah, here what's happening is children are reading stuff. They
hmm,
are reading their Wimpy Kids and
hmm,
Geronimo Stilton and all. Those books sell very well in
hmm,
India.
yeah,
Now, what's not available to them, they cannot procure, right, to read. So
hmm,
that's what's happening. They have very few books to choose from. If you
yes,
go to the children's fiction section, you will find them either you will have all the Harry Potters and all the Percy Jacksons and stuff like that, or on the other side you'll have the Wimpy Kids and I mean the
maybe a Roald
picture.
Dahl. Yeah,
Roald Dahls are a perennial favorite, and
yes,
Roald Dahls are now they have attained a stature of being academic books also because they are in
yes,
school.
yes,
So
yes,
yeah, they have very few titles or choices as far as
yes.
reading goes. So that's what we are also trying to do, expand it.
Yes. Also, the characters, what they read in, let's say, a Wimpy Kid or a Roald Dahl or a Harry Potter, they are not relatable to them, no? I mean, kids need people who are like them, who are
Like
talking
them.
like them and living like them in the cities that they are in, because most
Absolutely.
of the influence is, let's say, British writing, and that's what we have consumed, be it P.G. Woodhouse or Famous Five or all the young
So
adult
Playthings is still
space.
catching on. Playthings is still catching on. Children are still discovering it. I'm going to
Yes.
schools and actively talking about it wherever I
Mm.
can. So they're still discovering the book. But whatever feedback has come my way has been like super positive. And you
Mm.
know how judgy children can be.
Yes.
Children will call us paid, but they do relate. So that's the point that you made as well. So they can relate with a Rids or a Tiana or an Anvita
Yeah.
or a Palak. They are
Yes.
the characters in my book, so they do relate with such kind of, and that's why I think that works. It's not
Yes.
working. It's not only because of the horror. It's not only because there's a possessed clown in it and a demon in it. It's because of they
The
see their friends in.
relatability. Yeah, it's their world. I mean, the worldview, the world is their own, and it is not always the, let's say, uh, the British world or the white predominant world that we are mostly consuming in novels. But how was it to write for, let's say, the adults, the previous horror novels that you wrote? How was writing those novels? Did you also have some personal encounter with supernatural, or did you read a lot about these stories? How did it occur to you?
Okay, so these are like uh, many questions rolled in one. So let me take them
Tell us
up
about your
one by
previous books.
one. So the thing is, when this is my first book for kids.
Yeah.
And before this, I used to write. I mean, I still write. I won't say used to in the past tense. I generally write for a general audience, that is an adult audience. So my first book that came out, Maya's New Husband, I don't tell people to read it if they have a faint heart because it is extreme horror. Complete gore, complete everything, all it's a whole package. And that was the time when I was a self-published author, means it was my first book, I self-published it. So there was no censorship of any kind, and I wrote exactly what I wanted to write. Nobody to tell me that you cannot put this in a book. So I
Hmm.
just went all out. So writing that kind of stuff, which was so hard hitting, so gritty, so gruesome,
Hmm.
I followed it up with Yakshini as well, and Yakshini is still a little bit milder because
Hmm.
Yakshini has a lot of these supernatural elements and a lot of mythology in it.
Hmm.
So Yakshini was kind of a blend of several elements. Then I wrote hair-raising paranormal stuff. Like there is this collection called Haunted, which I co-authored with Jayalani, and The Spirits Talk to Me with Sarbajit Mohanty. Both of them are
Stock to me.
paranormal Both of them are paranormal investigators. So their job is to go to haunted locations and see whether ghosts are there or not. So their stories I brought out in these books, in these two books. And that was again super scary stuff. So all those books were super scary and they were unfiltered because I was
Mm,
writing for an audience who is used to reading horror
yeah.
and who wants that extreme chills, right?
Mm,
So when I was writing Playthings, I had to keep in mind that okay, now I'm writing for children. So
mm,
first and foremost, of course, there are all those riders that the language has to be children safe, and then there has to all the elements have to be okay for them and all that. But basically, I'll tell you this: I had a lot of fun writing this children's book because it was like reliving my own childhood. I
mhm.
thought of things that I liked reading as a child. I liked reading horror even as a child. So, what were the things I loved? That is what I put into this. And I did not take very long to write Playthings. I mean, the whole book I wrote within like 25, 30 days. So, it was not a long time commitment, also, because, of course, the plotting took
Took
time, but
time.
the writing was very quick. And those days were just fun. I was just chilled out. That's how
Absolutely. I
I
mean,
basically.
I think that's what every writer would say, that writing is the most fun part. And then everything that goes before and after are the things that you really need to kind of motivate yourself and drag yourself a bit. But talking about your journey before you got published, how did those days look like? Did you have to make a conscious decision to make writing the main part of your life, or did you have other things going on? Did you have a regular job? Because I guess 80-90% of the writers can't afford to live off their writing, no? So how was it, and how is it now? How does writing fit into your life?
I always wanted to write, even as a child. One of my things was I want to write a book. I want my name on the book. I want a book on the shelf in a bookstore.
Clear
So this,
visualization.
yeah, 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 because I was so enamored and enchanted by books that I read at that time from Enid Blyton and Agatha Christie and all these people that I just wanted to create worlds like they created. It was not about fame. It was not about money. Money, though I never thought about it, but it was not about all those things. It was just about having a book in which there's a world
With
and
your name in
characters that
it.
are.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's it. But then what happened is, as my life took its own journey and its own direction,
Course.
I I ended up with a coaching class. I set up an establishment, an institution where I was teaching academics to children. Like students, I would say till the 12th grade. So I
Hmm.
did that for 18 years, and this was going on, and I was making good money there. I would not say no to that because the education business is huge in India.
Yes.
So that was happening, but the thing is, I was a very good teacher as well. My students still think about me, talk to me, but somewhere a kind of a dissatisfaction was creeping in because I am a creative person by heart. So I was somewhere not adjusting to that whole concept that I am teaching things that I've already known to children who are not really interested in knowing all this because they are interested in the world beyond. So then that
Yes.
crept in, and when that feeling started creeping in, I thought that I have to do that thing that was in my mind as a child. So
Do your
in
real
2000,
calling. Yeah.
yes, in 2014, I decided that I have to write a book. So I was doing a bit of freelance work till then. So in 2014, I actually sat down. I wrote Maya's New Husband. I published it on Amazon in 2015, in fact, on January 3rd. And it went live. It got the feedback that it got. It did very well.
I
And
think 14
that's,
or 15 is when I met you first in Bombay.
yes, you met me you met me shortly after Maya's New Husband was released. So that was the book did well because it did
Yes.
well. It gave me a kind of a confidence boost that okay,
Hmm.
this is what I wanted to do and this is working for me. So
And very
at
few
that
horror writers were there and are still
at
there, I
that
guess, in
time I
India,
don't
no?
know whether there were any dedicated horror.
Yeah.
There are horror authors in India, but few of them, very handful,
Yeah.
few of them are dedicated horror writers.
Hmm.
So
Who write
that's
just
so
horror books. Yeah.
now it's changing because now horror is being looked upon like it has a readership,
Yeah.
and then there are these screen adaptations that are
Yes.
happening.
Yes.
and horror is one of the prime picks. So
Mm.
therefore, people are joining the bandwagon. It's
Correct.
happening,
Correct.
but still, the quality of horror needs a
Major.
huge. Because I'm also a member, an active member, a voting member of the Horror Writers Association. I also
Okay.
head their India chapter. I do that. So
Wow.
reading the horror that's coming out from the US or
Mm.
from Europe, it's leagues ahead of what we are writing.
Mm.
Because what's happening is we are still within those parameters, that the conventional parameters of horror. Like horror
The
should have
Ramsay
this,
brothers.
so we have supernatural, paranormal as the only
Yes.
thought process that we have. But whereas the West has gone forward and explored so many things in horror,
Mm.
why just the West? Even Japan and Korea are doing so well in horror. So
Mm.
our horror has still to evolve. It
Mm.
is.
Mm.
Over the last 7 years, a lot of good horror books have come out, and
Mm.
I'm sure this will continue. But we
Continue.
are
Yeah.
still, at a very nascent stage,
Yeah.
where it
True.
also the acceptability of in
Mm.
the reader's mindset. Even that has to evolve, because we, once we have a Chetan Bhagat among us, or once we have a kind of 5 point someone kind of book from the
Then the
horror genre,
category explodes.
then it's going to, skyrocket, spiral, whatever you say. But until that time happens, and until we hit that mark, we need to just persist and subsist with what we are writing.
But since 2015, no looking back. Till since then, writing is like the top priority in
My
your
books have
life.
done well. I have no complaints at all, because I started with a readership of one. That was my wife, and now it's like, yes, the books do sell well, and I've entered the charts and all that. So that feels good. It's a feel good factor. But I know, heart of hearts, and since we are having this very candid kind of talk,
Yeah.
I know that we have to do a lot more. My books have to do a lot more.
Mm.
So there's
Yes.
this music going on outside. I hope that's not disturbing.
I can't hear, but it's okay. Hope it's not a very horror kind of a music.
And in Mumbai, these processions are
Yeah,
in every.
sometimes I miss those. Sometimes here I feel it's like the silence is creeping. I mean, if I was a horror writer, maybe I'll start writing because sometimes the silence here creeps in your head because,
You asked me about that. In fact, you asked
yeah,
me about that. That I had paranormal
yes,
experiences.
yes, yes.
I actually have. I what I do is when I write a book, I travel. I go outside. I go to another place, a small town or something. I book a room, uh, an Airbnb or whatever. I shut myself in and I write for 7 to 10 days. I don't come out
Wow.
except for food. And I select these kind of places which are away from the civilization.
Mm.
So what happens is when I am writing, believe me or not, all these creepy things start happening. All those cliches like the curtains moving and the wind sweeping past you. Once I even saw a figure standing, a shadowy figure. Of course, it was my mind playing tricks.
Yeah,
Means
basically
I'm
you're forcing yourself to write and
Yeah,
imagine
I'm manifesting those things. I'm telling
manifesting.
you that 99% it was my illusion, but then I don't know. There's this 1%.
Amazing.
My God, what was that? And that is the spot, that is the zone where my horror comes from. That's the fear.
Great.
We try to
Yeah.
rationalize everything that happens around us. Yes, the
Mm.
spooky stuff. We
Mm.
try to rationalize. Oh, we heard a flapping, it must be a bird or something like that. We try to rationalize.
Yes.
I think there is lingering doubt,
Mm.
whatever it is not.
Yes.
That is where
Yes.
I think the horror comes from, the unknown, which the
Amazing.
unexpected.
But I really love this thing. I think a lot of writers do that. Even I was reading that J.K. Rowling also does like that. She books a room and she just goes and writes because, uh, yeah, I mean, you have to live with your own mind for some time, no, to make the
You
book
have to
happen.
live with the story. So
Tell us your favorite horror authors. I mean, I know we have spoken about a lot of them. Like, what would be your top three
I
all over?
grew up reading a lot of Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar
Like
Allan Poe.
he is considered to be an author who should be read at after you are a bit of an somewhat matured in horror reading, because his horror has a lot of subtext and it has a lot of depth in it. But I started reading Edgar Allan Poe very early on, and I enjoyed his stories, and they're twisted, they're bizarre, right? So I started reading. I still remember the moment when I read The Telltale Heart. So I was so like taken. by that story, so consumed by it, that I just wanted to write something like that. That same gothic vibe I wanted to capture, the admission of guilt, all those elements I wanted to work in it. So I saw the genius in him even as a child when I was reading him. When I say child, I mean like 12, 13, that might have been my age.
Hmm.
That was also the time that I read Dracula, Frankenstein, all this stuff I read as a teenager itself.
Yeah,
If you ask
Dracula, I
my favorite,
remember, was a big
oh,
sensation one time. My God.
if you ask my favorites, then of course I enjoy Edgar Allan Poe anytime I can just curl up with one of his books. I read a lot of Stephen King as well,
Stephen
but
King.
then Stephen King is somebody who, like people just, I mean, he's very known. I like Peter Straub, uh, another horror author. Not many Indians know about him, but again, an unmitigated genius. Uh, Shirley Jackson, right? So
And what
just
about the
thinking of,
Twilight series? You don't like the uh,
I've not even read it. That's more of fantasy stuff.
less
Like,
matured horror readers?
yeah, maybe I'll read it. It's not like I'm averse to it or something like that, but I never got around reading the
Yeah,
series.
it's a bit of
Because
fantasy and romance. No, it's in a different
and
zone
reading a
altogether.
series is a long commitment.
Yes,
I remember
true.
when I read Harry Potter, it took like 3 months of my life because I read when the seventh book was just to come out. I got a freelance project to write something about Harry Potter 7, which was coming out. It had not come out yet.
Okay.
So it was a freelance project. So to do that, I had to read all the previous Harry Potter books, which I had not read until then. I'm talking about, I don't know, 2004 or something. So I had not read them. So I told that person, he was from the US, that I have not read Harry Potter. Then he said, how can you, like, how are you
Not read.
existing?
Where are you living under the rock?
So he told me, I am right now sending you some funds. You buy the Harry Potter books, all of them, and read them. So I got to read Harry Potter on his account. So I read them. Yeah, it took some time, it took a while, but I enjoyed those books. And then when
Okay.
Harry Potter 7 was to come out, I was one of the first guys in India to pre book it and to go early morning, line up at Crossword and pick up my copy and come home before it was, it was at 7 a.m. that opened Crossword that day, even in India for Harry Potter 7. So I was the first
That's
one to
the
go there.
commitment. That's the commitment of a book lover, guys.
So that's how I turned into a Harry Potter fan. I did not know it.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, Harry Potter, there is like no questions asked. I mean, I think my kid is listening to the audiobook, I think the 100th time for the Harry Potter series. So, yeah, I mean, it's
But it
unparalleled.
has a lot of elements of horror as well. Harry Potter,
Yes,
though we
yes,
talk about Harry Potter as a fantasy thing, but when you go to from the book 3 onwards, when Sirius Black comes in,
yes, yes.
from there, I think it
That's
takes
when
a
the
turn
age limit
towards
also
the,
starts, I think, for the stories.
yes, and the stuff with the Dementors and all,
Dementors.
that's pretty scary. I mean, Dementors, I find they are a marvelous creation. Somebody who sucks the happiness out of you. I mean, what can be more horrifying than that? Putting that in a children's book requires gumption.
Yeah,
That's what J.K. Rowling pulled off, and she pulled off so remarkably well. So I know that we talk about J.K. Rowling. I mean, the perception has changed because of all the tweets that she makes. But even so, her writing is genius. That
yes.
can never be taken away from
Absolutely. So I wish you all the best that you also create such memorable books in your lifetime because I guess we really need a lot of depth and width of books in India, especially in the horror genre. And it was fabulous talking to you again. I learned about so many new horror writers. I hope I get the guts to pick up at least some of the basic ones and read them. And yeah, thank you so much. Anything
that.
that
Thank
you
you
would
so
like
much.
to say?
I would just like to, I've already complimented you on your fantastic job. And of course, I can say that again. It's great that you do this. And I always love opportunities to connect with my readers wherever they might be, whichever part of the world. Because, books, just today there was this tweet in the morning that our books will always travel more than we ever will. And
Absolutely.
they will also have more experiences and live longer than we will live. So this is it. Books can go anywhere, and I hope
Absolutely.
my books also reach people. And that's why I thank you for all this, for this kind of connection that you help us foster with our readers. Keep reading and have a great time, people.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Have a nice day. Bye bye.